Okay guys, so in this lesson we're actually going to be talking about graphing linear equations. How do we graph a linear equation? So for that we need to know a couple of things. So we need to figure out what the term slope means, which in this case slope. M is represented usually for the term slope. And the M equation is equal to rise divided by run. What does that mean? So basically it just means the amount you go up or down over the amount that you go over to the right. So what the slope is basically the difference between uphill and downhill. So we have two lines here. So like example number one, this is one line. Example number two, this is another line. In the first line, we'll always read the slope from left to right like a book. So the first line is actually going upwards from left to right. So we would say that this one has a positive slope. In the second example, since we read it like a book from left to right, this one's actually going downwards. So we would say that this one is a negative slope. So the first one will be a positive slope, the second will be a negative slope. The question is, what is the slope, right? So how much do we go up or down? How much do we go over? So M is actually going to be a fraction, ideally. So I put 2 points here of reference. If we want to find the slope between those 2 points, all we got to do is figure out how much do we go up to get from one point to this point. So if I look at this point, I have to go up 2 squares. Notice that I'm not counting my dot here. So I'm not counting the dot because I haven't gone anywhere yet. Once I move my pen, then I'm going to start counting. So this will be 1, this would be 2. And then again, I'm going to count how many spaces did I go to the right. So I'm going to start counting once I move my pen. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the slope, or the M for the first one, is 2 over 5. Notice that I put a positive 2 over 5 because it's a positive slope because we're going up. So we went up 2 squares instead of down, which is a positive slope. Okay, let's do the other one. So we want to find the slope between this point and this point. In this case, to get from this point to this point, since we're going from left to right, we first have to go down 1, 2, 3 squares. I'm going to stop right here. Then I'm going to have to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. Since I went down, I'm going to be going down 1, 2, 3, which is a negative 3, and over to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope would be down 3 over 4, or negative 3 over 4. Okay, so that's one thing we need to be able to solve, to graph a linear equation. So now next thing we need to know is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is just a certain special point. Basically it means that it's the point where it touches the y-axis, which is why it's called the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is typically represented by b, and it's also known as a starting point. So if we want to figure out what that is, all we got to do is look at the y-axis, which is the vertical line. Remember, we have an x and a y-axis. X is a horizontal line, y is a vertical line. So to find the y-intercept, all we have to do is look at the y-axis and see where the line crosses. So look at the y-axis, see where the line crosses. For the first example, we can see that the line is crossing here. And if we actually count from the origin, the distance to where the point is actually touching, it's going to be up 1, 2, 3. So the y-intercept, or b, is equal to 3. Okay, let's do it again for the next one. So we're trying to figure out where it crosses the y-axis. So we look at this line, so that means it's going to be crossing here. If we go to the origin, this is actually going to be down 2 from the origin, so the b would be equal to negative 2. All right, now that we got that handled, the whole point of us doing this is to be able to graph a linear equation, right? So we're going to put all that together to see if we can graph some lines. So let's do an example. So example number 1. Let's say we want to graph the linear equation y equals negative 1 over 3x plus 2. So this is the slope-intercept form for a linear equation. The number that is in front of the x is called the slope. So if you want to figure out what the slope is, basically look at at whatever's in front of the x. This will be the slope, or the m. The number that doesn't have the x next to it, this is called the y-intercept, which is what we talked about earlier. So this is b, the y-intercept. So let's say we want to graph that line. So similarly, the way we did it earlier, we would go to the starting point, or the b, which in this case b, or The y-intercept is positive 2. So we're going to put a dot at positive 2 on the y-axis. So look at this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. The starting point is positive 2. We're going to put a dot at positive 2, which is there on the y-axis. Very important. Do not use the x-axis. It's not even there. So don't even worry about it. From that starting point, then we have to go to the slope to find our next point. So if we look at our reference slope, it actually says -1/3, right? Which means we have to go down 1 because it's negative, and then over to the right 3. Starting at the starting point, not the origin, starting here. So then I got to go down 1, and then to the right 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I draw my second point. You are done. So then if you connect these two dots, you have the line that we're trying to graph. So in this case, it would be this line, which has a negative slope, so it's actually going downwards. If you read it from left to right, it's going downhill in a sense. Okay. Let's try another one. So let's do example number 2. So example number 2. Let's say we want to graph the linear equation y equals 4x. Uh-oh, wait, what the heck? How do we graph this? So if you remember, the number that's in front of the x is the slope. So this will be m. But then again, where's our b? Because we need a starting point, right? Well, even though you can't really see right away, there actually is a b. We could always write 4x as the same thing as 4x plus 0, right? If you add 0 to something, it doesn't change anything at all. So even when you have problems like this where you don't have the b, basically you can just replace that with a 0 because that'll mean the exact same thing. So b, or the starting point, is 0, which in this case, it's talking about the origin. So if we want to graph this line, we make our x and our y-axis. So this is our y-axis, this is our x-axis. It's going to hit the y-axis at 0. So we're going to go to the 0 on the y-axis, which is right about there at the origin. And then to find the next point, well, we look at our slope. So in this case, the slope is 4. Wait a minute, I want to write that as a fraction though. So in order for us to write 4 as a fraction, I could always put this over 1. If you put it over 1, it doesn't change anything. So basically 4 is the same thing as 4 over 1, or 4 divided by 1. So starting at the origin, we're going to go up 4 because it's positive, up 1, 2, 3, 4, over to the right 1, boom, there's our next point. So if you connect the dots, you have your graph of your linear equation. Okay, let's do another example, example 3, and this will be the last one. So example number 2, let's say you want to graph y equals -3 over 5x minus 1. So you want to graph that. So we make our x and y axis. So this is our y, this is our x. In this case, the 3 over 5 negative is in front of the x, so that's going to be our slope. The -1 is going to be our b, so that's where we start from. So we're always going to be starting with the y-intercept. So starting at the -1 on the y-axis, so again, this is our y-axis. We're not even looking at this at all. So the y-axis, starting at the -1, boom, there's the spot. Then the slope is -3 over 4. Negative means down, so down 3. Wait, I said 4, just kidding, 5. So -3 over 5, down 3 over 5. So starting here, go 1, 2, 3, down, over to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Connect the dots, and presto, you have yourself the graph of a linear equation. Okay, good luck guys, see you on the next one.